Hi, it's Dwyer, keepingitfree.blogspot.com, with some thoughts on the presidential race, in particular Newt Gingrich. Now, I'm a capitalist. I love capitalism. I'm just trying to make money, right? I usually vote Democratic. In the past, I've voted for Clinton, Gore, Obama. You get the idea. My own personal belief is that entrepreneurs, like the guys who founded Google, have created more jobs and have created more economic opportunity for working people than someone like Mother Teresa. In other words, I believe the entrepreneurs at Google, while trying to maximize profits, have literally helped more people to feed themselves and to support their families than people like Mother Teresa. Take that however you wish, right? I operate a few websites, morebarack.blogspot.com, voteromney.blogspot.com, really as a way to sell ads and to aggregate articles supporting the candidates, right? I'm someone who's just looking for economic opportunity. Now, all of that said, I can sense a complete fraud when I see one, right? For the record, let me just say that my favorite candidate for president is Gary Johnson in this election, even though I voted for Obama in 2008. If not Gary Johnson, my second choice would be Ron Paul. So you understand my bias going into this conversation. But I can spot a complete fraud running for president, a huckster who's just trying to say whatever he can in the moment to get votes in the moment. And let me just say, I've been so unimpressed with Newt Gingrich. Is this guy in 2012 really walking around and trying to link blacks to welfare in every conversation? Why is it that whenever this guy, this huckster, talks about welfare, he always then talks about black people as if we're the majority of the people receiving welfare, which we're not? This is as dumb and as stupid as if Herman Cain were to bemoan the fact that most of the people on welfare are Caucasian, right? Let me just say that if this is the kind of political imagery that a candidate is trying to push in 2012 America, then I really have to question that candidate's intelligence. Let me go further. The effort to link Barack Obama to food stamps. Let me say this. I'm a critic these days of Barack Obama, but really that's the best that Newt Gingrich can do? Call Obama a food stamp president? I mean, the obvious race-based arguments that this guy's trying to push should really disqualify him from serious consideration. And yet this guy actually thinks that these lines are vote getters, right? Now, let me say, he may have won the South Carolina primary. I believe in the process he lost more votes than he picked up nationally. And certainly, when I see some guy trying to throw out racial imagery for political reasons like this in 2012, it's laughable that this guy would be running for any public office, be it the local mayor or president of the United States. Let me go one step further. This guy is such a fraud that he's talking about fighting government waste after having gotten over $1 million, working for outfits like Fannie Mae and being a lobbyist, an influence peddler. Then he wants to convince us that he wasn't an influence peddler and that the money he received from Fannie Mae was as being a historian, right? Well, since this fool doesn't understand, that racial political imagery doesn't work in 2012 America, and since this idiot doesn't understand that it's exactly these kind of government officials who are making tens, hundreds, millions of dollars behind the scenes doing nonsensical work like being a historian in a quasi-governmental agency like Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, it's exactly those kind of officials that literally we've been financially supporting to our detriment, to the point where we're now in debt up to our eyeballs for generations, right? Newt Gingrich's jobs, his work, and I put that in quotes loosely, is the kind of work that I hope gets completely eliminated, right? Let me just add, too, that how has the Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac mortgage deduction housing industry been doing? Hasn't the micromanagement here, hasn't the subsidies just given birth to idiots like Newt Gingrich making hundreds of thousands of dollars from you, the taxpayer, right? Just follow the money, right? And hasn't it resulted in a housing market that, quite frankly, got off the rails of market pressures and conditions, has been overvalued, and is now bringing down the economy? The free market, I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm not saying that the free market is infallible. But what I am saying is that it's less fallible than when we try to come in and subsidize things and set up a regime where losers like Newt Gingrich are able to make hundreds of thousands of dollars in the background, presumably as a historian, right? The entire housing market needs to be retooled. Let me also point out, too, that think about how sad it is when someone like me, who supports capitalism, is watching a Republican debate and realizes that one of the guys who claims he's a capitalist doesn't support capitalism. If Newt Gingrich supports capitalism, then he really shouldn't be as jealous of Mitt Romney's wealth and as disdainful of Mitt Romney's background at Bain Capital, a company that started outfits like Staples and Sports Authority, businesses that are still ongoing, businesses that are still employing people, as Newt Gingrich has been. This ridiculous, prurient desire to see Mitt Romney's tax returns is not only distasteful, but quite frankly, it's irrelevant. If there is a belief that Mitt Romney has a financial conflict of interest that disqualifies him from serious consideration for the presidency of the United States, then talk about that conflict of interest, right? Make the argument at the debate. Mitt, you have a financial investment in X, Y, and Z, and because X, Y, and Z are involved in these big national issues that need to be determined during the next presidential term, you are not best suited to serve as president of the United States. Okay, I'll buy that, but keep in mind, even an argument like that wouldn't require the release of private tax returns, right? An argument like that would simply require that the candidate then explain their financial interests in X, Y, and Z and discredit the argument. But instead, we have one guy who made millions of dollars, of course, on the backs of the people who pay for the lobbyist industry and on the backs of the people who pay Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, right? And since that's a taxpayer-subsidized regime, right, the entire housing market, housing deductions, etc., that means you, right? We have Newt Gingrich criticizing a private equity guy for his success and then trying to make an issue of his tax returns. It's ridiculous. Not only that, let's go further. If Mitt Romney has been adept at minimizing his tax liability, his federal tax liability, who's to blame for that? Mitt Romney, who's following the law, or the people in Washington who have given preferential tax treatment to capital gains, dividends, as opposed to wages, right? And so the entire argument logically being made by Newt Gingrich is a non sequitur, right? As is Newt Gingrich's entire platform. Now, I'm not in South Carolina. I'm in California. Let me just say I'm not a Republican, but gee, if Newt Gingrich starts to get traction in this race, I might have to register as a Republican just so I can go into the Republican primary and vote against this idiot, right? He's not qualified to be president of the United States. His own party knows that. I thought it was very revealing when Rick Santorum, and I'm not a big Santorum guy, but Rick Santorum, who knew Newt Gingrich, right? Santorum, former senator from Pennsylvania, at a debate. I thought it was meaningful when Santorum talked about how other Republicans thought that Newt Gingrich simply wasn't well equipped to be Speaker of the House. And of course, they then voted him out, and Newt was subject to an ethics investigation that he had to settle. Right? He had to settle it. It didn't get dismissed. He had to settle it. And so you really have to look at all of that. Listen closely to the words of Republicans who were involved in voting Mitt out. And then you have to ask yourself, if his own party did not feel that he was fit to be Speaker of the House, how can he then ask the country to find him fit to be President of the United States? Mitt, just food for thought. I'm about to buy some food. I'm black. I'm not going to use food stamps. And I'm not going to vote for you. Okay? There are many people, most people in the African American community who, quite frankly, are not on government assistance. Yes, we exist. I assume you don't know it because you're not that bright and you're a complete idiot whose intellectual arrogance is completely unwarranted and without any factual basis. I hope you lose badly. Let's hope that the people of Florida are smart enough to pick anyone else in the Republican race to win their primary. Thank you for watching.